Coming up on Tech News Today, Apple assembles in the USA some iMacs. Also, Google versus the United Nations, and put cash in your iPhone for free. All that and more coming up.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Monday, December 3rd, 2012. Tech News Today is brought to you by GoToAssist by Citrix. Take control of your IT world from one simple cloud-based platform. Provide live or unattended support to all your users from anywhere. Sign up for your 30-day free trial today. Visit GoToAssist.com and use promo code TNT. And by Squarespace, the fast and easy way to create a high-quality website, blog, or online portfolio. For a free trial and 10% off your first purchase on new accounts, go to squarespace.com and use offer code TNT12. And they recently launched a developer platform for complete code control. And by Lantronix, maker of the Xprint server. Print from your iPad, iPhone, or any iOS device to virtually any printer. For more information, visit xprintserver.com/twit and enter the code HOLIDAY2012 to receive 20% off on your order. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Sarah Lane.
And I'm Jason Howell.
Ayaz Akhtar on assignment. His assignment is take 2 days off, apparently. And this is the show where we take a look at the most important stories in the tech world, try to put them in context for you, starting with the top 10 stories of the day in the news feeds. Some of the new 21.5-inch iMacs carry a stamp that says assembled in the USA. iFixit found the stamp in a teardown, as have several other consumers. Some made-to-order iMacs have had the stamp in the past, but now it's showing up on standard models. The FTC requires more than just importing all the parts in so-called screwdriver assembly to allow you to use assembled in USA as a designation. Apple's Tim Cook has expressed his desire to make as many products as possible in the U.S.
iPad Magazine, The Daily, is closing down after 21 months after some pretty dismal subscription numbers, around 100,000. It needed more like 500,000 to break even and instead was losing about $30 million per year. Parent company News Corp says the publication will live on in other channels and that some staff will move over to the New York Post.
The Conference on Telecommunications has kicked off in Dubai with the goal of updating the 1988 treaty governing telecommunication regulations between countries. A lot of controversy has erupted over some proposals to change the way the Internet works or how it's governed. Dr. Hamadan Toure, Secretary General of the ITU, said the Internet is still a rich world privilege, and the ITU wants to change that, but only proposals that receive unanimous consent can be adopted.
Digital Times reports that Microsoft is cutting orders for the rest of 2012 for the Surface RT tablet in half, in fact, from 4 million to 2 million units, and that the price of the Surface Pro, expected in January, might come down too and possibly be released early. Prices for the Surface Pro currently start at $899 for the 64-gigabyte version, $999 for the 128-gigabyte version. Microsoft spokesperson denied the report, calling it inconsistent with comments Steve Ballmer have made recently about ramping up supply and distribution for the Surface.
Samsung has argued that the foreman in its famous Apple patent case that it lost this past summer, Velvin Hogan, had withheld key facts, including that he was sued by Seagate Technology, and Samsung says Apple knew it. Well, in papers filed late Friday, Apple revealed that it only knew about Hogan's bankruptcy. It never knew Hogan's relationship with Seagate.
Intel will cut power consumption significantly for future versions of its Ivy Bridge chip, a source tells CNET. Ivy Bridge chips, like the ones in Windows Ultrabooks, MacBook Airs, and the upcoming Surface Pro, are 17 watts. Lower wattages, of course, would make the chips more power efficient and allow them to go into more versions of tablets. Intel's Z2760 system on a chip is currently used in a variety of other Windows 8 tablets, but an Ivy Bridge version would greatly boost performance.
TechCrunch reports Facebook is in talks to acquire multi-platform messaging app WhatsApp. The service has been successful with ad-free paid messaging in more than 100 countries on 750 mobile networks. Facebook has been focused on improving its mobile presence.
Now that the iPhone 5 is a go in China, Apple has turned its attention to the rest of the world. The company is launching the iPhone 5 in South Korea Friday, December 7th. 1 week later, the phone launches in a handful of other countries, including Chile, Russia, and Armenia. And December 21st is the next big launch, with countries such as Egypt, Kenya, and Vietnam all getting iPhone 5 access. All told, the phone will launch in more than 100 countries in less than 3 months, which is the fastest rollout of the iPhone to date.
His Holiness Pope Benedict XVI has posted to Twitter before on the official Vatican account, but starting December 12th, the Pope gets his own username, @Pontifex. The Vatican says the Pope will use a question and answer format for his first Twitter session and invited people to start sending questions.
Finally, scientists have built a super bulb out of plastic, and Gadget says it looks fantastic. Sorry, Tom, I forgot to write this news.
I was wondering if you were going to just wing it or try to. It's pretty
cool. I didn't even see it till just now, so I didn't know what to say.
It's a replacement for CFLs, and it's made out of plastic, so it's a lot cheaper and a lot safer. That's pretty cool.
Oh, well, that is just wonderful. Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome. This episode of Tech News Today brought to you by GoToAssist by Citrix. Working in IT means constantly jumping from one problem to the next. Each issue needs to be solved fast. Everybody's like, when are you going to fix this? When are you going to fix this? Every minute counts, so don't waste your time juggling a bunch of different tools and try to duplicate data entry over and over. Use GoToAssist from Citrix, the leader in remote support. You'll have the tools you need integrated into one easy-to-use platform so you can work faster and more efficiently. Here's how it works. GoToAssist includes 3 essential support tools that you can customize for your needs. GoToAssist Service Desk. That allows you to log incidents and track the resolutions. GoToAssist Monitoring proactively identifies issues to fix before they become bigger problems. You don't have to wait for somebody to complain. And then there's remote support. You don't have to leave the house. You can provide live or unattended support to any PC, Mac, or mobile device from anywhere to resolve issues quickly. We've used these 3 tools here at TWiT a lot. It helps to manage these servers, reboot things, make sure things are working without having to drive all the way over to the studio every time something goes wrong. So sign up for your special 30-day free trial today. Give it a shot. Try it out. Don't take our word for it. Visit gotoassist.com, click on the Try It Free button, and use the promo code TNT. That's gotoassist.com, promo code TNT, and we thank them for their support of Tech News Today. Joining us now, Wil Harris of channelflip.com, back on the show. Wil, thanks for joining us, man. How's it going?
It's going very well, thank you. It's an absolute pleasure to be here, as always. Although I miss Big iDog. Sad without him.
I know. You guys had a great triangulation episode. That was fun, right?
Amusing. if you haven't seen it, if anybody listening or watching TNT Today hasn't seen it, if you want to see probably one of the most unusual triangulation episodes that TWiT has ever recorded, definitely go and check out me and Ayaz from a couple of weeks ago. It will amuse you.
/try, T-R-I. All right. Well, we are spanning the globe. We have me here in California, and we back in Petaluma for a while. We have Sarah Lane in Paris. We
That's
have
correct,
Wil Harris
Tom.
in England. And are you? You're in England, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So in fact, Sarah and me, we're practically. In fact, I was in Paris yesterday, so we're almost next to each other.
You're a channel away from each other.
Exactly.
I mean, if we stretched, we would be high-fiving each other right now. Just stretch.
There you go. Across the channels. Wow, Henry V would love that. Leah.
By the way, Wil, congratulations on the new baby of the royal family.
Oh, thank you very much. Yes, I was working hard at that one.
You know,
I
he's
look
not
forward to 9 months of ridiculous media speculation.
It's a different Will in Will and Kate than Wil Harris.
But it's everybody's bait. I mean, it's
everybody's. It belongs to the country. It's like the heir. It's the royal heir.
To the Commonwealth.
Right? So it's kind of, we're all metaphorically pregnant right now.
Well, this is
wonderful.
This is all appropriate because we have the United Nations confab going on, the International Telecommunications World Conference that everybody's been upset about. They want to increase security. They want to improve accessibility, and they're considering over 900 new regulation changes that have been proposed by 193 nations. And, of course, that's got people all up in arms. We've talked about some of those proposals before that have got some controversial attention, things like censorship measures, things like charging termination rates which means the sending party has to charge as well as the receiving party. Right now on the internet, you just pay to access the internet, and then you can send and receive whatever you want. Some people want to change that. That's what a lot of net neutrality debates are about. Freeandopenweb.com has been launched by Google to ask people to speak out and let the UN know, hands off the internet. They've got a hashtag free and open. On the other side of this debate, Hammond Touré, the ITU Secretary General, says, look, no proposal is going to be accepted without unanimity. We don't do things by votes in the ITU. If it doesn't work for everyone, it doesn't work, because this is about interconnection. The whole thing was started before the United Nations, back in the telegraph days, to make sure that everybody's telegraph networks could work together. So they've been doing this for a long time. The biggest issue, though, seems to be the closed nature of this discussion. Google has representation there. The United States has a 100-plus delegation. Many people from companies are there, but they're complaining that this is a closed-door meeting because it's not open to the public. Will, from the international perspective, I know Europe has also stated that they do not want to agree to any regulations. And if Europe and the United States don't agree, there's nothing to worry about, right?
Yeah, I can't really see much happening with it. I mean, to be honest, I think there are certainly issues with the regulation of the internet and the way that it's, the way that it's run in general. I think the fact that ICANN is kind of based in the States is a kind of interesting model. It's like ICANN is sort of almost belongs to the US, and the US kind of controls it, but is this sort of, it's the international domain registrar, which is kind of an issue. But I think, Hammond Touré, who's the Secretary General of the ITU, says that, well, we're not going to do anything without unanimity. And as far as, we can tell, despite the closed nature of the discussion, we know what the discussion is roughly centering around. As far as we can tell, there's going to be almost zero agreement on anything. So it seems like a slightly pointless exercise. It seems like lots of people from all around the world getting together to discuss stuff that in the end is going to result in pretty much the square root of Jack.
Sarah, do you think that this is going to end up meaning nothing?
Probably, because, of course, nobody's going to agree on a whole lot of anything. But I wonder why go through all of this with closed doors? That's a surefire way to rile up a bunch of people. Why not at least say, here are we've got the proposals on the table, and this is how each country feels about this, and this is why maybe proposal A is not going to go forward because these 5 countries opposed it. I know that's, there's probably a too many cooks in the kitchen type of quality to that if you open it up to everybody, but it would certainly satisfy those who think there are going to be decisions made that are going to be harmful to the public because we don't have a say in it until it's too late.
Yeah, I think that's what's going on here. Is it's the internet culture meeting a much older culture. The culture of regulating telegraphs and even telephone lines was about big companies providing service to you that you pay for, and you weren't involved in it. It was basically like, how do we interconnect all these companies around the world, and why do people don't need to have a voice in that? It's all done within countries. But the internet doesn't respect borders. So, of course, it's going to be a different situation, and you're going to have people very concerned about the idea of governments getting together behind closed doors and deciding what to do. But on the other side, it doesn't sound like they can really decide much.
Yeah, I think what's really interesting is that if you think about the kind of regulatory sphere of the internet that we sort of generally think of, it's sort of, things like net neutrality within a country. It's about AT&T or Verizon or Comcast, within the framework of the US regulatory system. And you can at least kind of get your head around that, because you sort of assume that what's good for one US customer is probably good for another US customer, right? It's the same kind of, everyone's affected by the same kind of issues like bandwidth caps, all those kind of things. When you're thinking about a regulatory environment which is international, what's good for a customer in, Egypt or Iran or Syria is totally different from what's good for a customer in America or Britain or France. And so it's really hard to think that there can be any really much common purpose that unites the kind of people that are looking to regulate this stuff. It's almost so disparate as to be completely ineffectual.
Well, Google is definitely doing a full court press on this. So I would imagine with Google, Europe, the United States sort of resisting any kind of change in regulation, then we're not going to see much, but we'll keep an eye on it. It's got 11 days left to run. So there may be.
What are they going to talk about for 11 days?
Oh,
I mean,
man.
come on.
What won't they talk about? Those guys, once they get started,
It seems like a waste of money. You know, we're all sort of like, obviously nothing's really going to change because how could it? Nobody can agree on any one thing enough. But they're hanging out for a long time.
Well, you know what?
Everybody's got to fight. Eat a lot of
they
meals.
haven't updated the treaty since 1988, so it definitely is definitely a reason to have talks and maybe at least get something started. But until they can get everybody to agree, it's not going to change much. Maybe they can do some good things for cybersecurity. Maybe they can do some good things for rolling out access into rural areas and underdeveloped areas. That would be good. Meanwhile, a developing country innovation is starting to come to the developed world thanks to a company called Droplet.
Yeah, it's an iOS app, at least for now. It's based out of Birmingham in the UK, and it's live with merchants in Birmingham alone. So it's a very small, controlled market that they're in. But it's very interesting. It's a mobile payment company that's competing directly with Square or mobile payment services offered by Visa and MasterCard. But it doesn't charge transaction fees to either buyers or sellers, which could be very attractive, especially to smaller merchants who end up either paying per transaction or paying monthly or annual fees to companies to have the privilege of doing mobile payments. So the way that it works is that if I have the app and Tom has the app, I can add cash to my side of Droplet via my debit or credit card. So I'm just putting money into my Droplet account. If Tom is a retailer, I can scan a special barcode when I'm paying at the register to go ahead and pay. So it's a nice, somewhat seamless activity. And it also has location-based information. So if I'm walking down the street, at least in Birmingham, at least right now, I can say, oh, cool. There are 3 merchants that are within, 100 feet of me that are participating. So I know who to go to if I want to use Droplet as much as possible. The stats right now, again, small market, about 50 merchants in the Birmingham city center, 1,000 users, and the average payment value is around £10 sterling. So it's not a big group, but the company says we want to roll out to other cities. Things are going very well. And that the way that it works is you say, well, wait a second. If they're not charging transaction fees, I mean, that's how a company like Square makes its money. And that's not a new thing. I mean, this is the way that payment companies make a lot of money. Well, the way that it works is that instead of charging transaction fees or some sort of reoccurring fee, the Droplet team says, look, listen, you can put your money into Droplet and you can remove it at any time or access it at any time. However, if you leave a certain amount of money in there for a long enough period, we make a small amount of money off of the interest for those funds. And the company says more and more people are doing that. They're not just putting in 20 units of currency just to pay once and then they're back to zero. They're putting a bunch of money in there and then they're paying a variety of transactions over time and then putting more money in so that they have money later. So it's a completely different model. And I'm curious, to you guys, Tom and Will, do you think that this is a scalable model if they're actually earning money based on the fact that you will have enough money in there regularly so that they earn interest? Will, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. It's I'm trying to get my head around the business model. You would have to have a lot of money to earn interest. I mean, in a sense, It's not a question of whether it's scalable. It's the fact that it only works at scale. It's sort of like if it's not scalable, it's completely useless because there's no way of making any money. I can see that it would work, but on the other hand, I think when you look at things like Square or like the Pay by Visa or the existing merchant relationships, most of the value in mobile payment systems, or most of the work that has to be done, is not really in creating the app or creating the technology. It's actually in creating the merchant network to get people to accept these things, because without merchants who will accept this type of transaction, it's basically useless. So for all the coolness of Square and for the fact that it's been this amazingly disruptive technology, what Square has actually done really well in the last 18 months is build out an enormous merchant network in the States of people willing to take Square. It's like, there's nothing technologically sophisticated about a magnetic card that you keep in your wallet. What Visa and MasterCard did was build an absolutely enormous network of merchants that would accept this thing, that made it completely ubiquitous. So although I think Droplet is cool, and although mobile cash without payment is interesting, et cetera, unless they're going to invest an awful lot of time and money building out at least a UK wide or a European or an American merchant network, it's going to be practically useless.
Yeah, I think that's
but then again. Oh, sorry.
No, that's all right. I think it's a fair point. But and maybe this is what you're going to say, Sarah, is the fact that they don't charge transaction fees mean merchants are like, yeah, if I can get,
that's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah.
You get a bunch of merchants who all of a sudden are evangelizing this because they're like, hey, less fees for us. Please use Droplet. It's so easy. It's awesome. We love it. There are merchants who I've never really felt like, and there are quite a few Square merchants, at least around my neighborhood. I've never really felt like they were pushing Square. I just like Square, so it's like, ooh, if it's available, I'll use it. But if you've got a merchant who is willing to sit down with a customer and just quickly sort of explain, this is how great this app is, so convenient for you, they don't even need to mention the fact that it's going to help them financially. And all of a sudden, you've got a larger group of people who are pushing Droplet for the team.
Yeah, and before the people in Birmingham write me, I know they probably already have. I wasn't saying that Birmingham was the third world country or the developing country. This sort of business model has been to
Birmingham. It sort of is a third world country.
This sort of business model has been used in a lot of developing countries for payment transactions on cell phones, where people actually use text messaging to send money to each other, and then there'll be bodegas or places where you can go and withdraw the money, and the way the places that hold the money make money is off the interest. And so that's hopefully that's what they're hoping, is that they'll just have enough money in the system at any given point that they'll be able to make enough interest to pay for this. So,
and that makes total sense. I think the issue is just that in those kind of developing countries, the reason it works is that there's no existing banking infrastructure in many cases, or kind of minimal banking infrastructure. So there are no entrenched kind of interests to have to displace. I think that's going to, and no consumer behavior to have to displace. In fact, I think that's going to be harder in more developed places. And just so I don't get kind of hate mail, I have been to Birmingham and I love it, and it's lovely. It's not a country at all.
All right, well, let's talk about those assembled in USA stamps on the iMacs. The FTC says you can't say assembled in USA without qualification if you just imported all the parts and screwed it together. So something more is going on. As we mentioned, Sacramento Bee has reported that the Elk Grove plant, which Apple still maintains for some assembly of items, has bulked up its staff recently. If Apple is making things in the USA, wouldn't they be trumpeting it? Wouldn't they be telling everyone, Sarah?
Yeah, I would think so. And not only would it make people happy, and look, we've got, we're creating jobs. And does this somehow come off as a very grand experiment? And we're just noticing, because I've exit tore some stuff apart, that might not be actually financially feasible to continue. I'm not sure. But if I were Apple and this was something that was a trend that was only going to continue, I'd be making a pretty big deal about it.
Will, a lot of people have speculated this is just a temporary thing because of the supply chain issues with the iMac.
No, I think the reason they're not trumpeting it is I think Tim Cook has been really interesting. He's shown since coming into Apple that he wants to change Apple a little bit, make it a little bit more of a good corporate citizen. He's reinstituted the charity programs and those kind of things. And I think Tim Cook would like to see more stuff manufactured by Apple in America. I think he kind of sees that as a kind of like a moral imperative in some ways. But I think if you look at analyst reports and stock market reports on Apple over the last 3 to 6 months, everyone is highlighting the fact that Apple's gross margins are starting to get nibbled away. Like, the thing that makes Apple a lot of money is the fact that its hardware is so expensive to buy compared to the amount it costs to make, right? So it makes enormous gross margins, and that's what Apple is great at. And I think by moving manufacturing to America, if indeed they start to do that, that is inevitably going to impact on their gross margin at a time when analysts are already starting to pay a lot of attention to that margin and worry about it a little bit. And so I think if Apple isn't trumpeting it, it's because they're trying not to freak out analysts who are thinking, is Apple going to be as profitable as it is in the future?
Yeah, and so this is
this
is probably a temporary thing, right?
Or at least Tim Cook is the supply chain guy, right? He was the one who had kind of figured it out for Apple, even when Steve Jobs was still in charge. And we mentioned in the news views that they have the largest iPhone rollout going on right now in more countries in as short amount of time as any other iPhone. So the whole supply chain and production schedule is very, very important to Tim Cook, and he's good at it. So imagine if Apple says, look what we're doing. We are bringing some Apple production jobs to the U.S., and then somehow, for whatever reason, they realize, this is hurting our bottom line. This is not actually going to work. Then they have to tell people they're taking away jobs. Then you get really, really upset people. So, yeah, this looks like something that maybe it's not temporary, but it's not proven yet.
Yeah, maybe,
so
maybe they're testing the waters cautious. Just to see, like, how much will it cost? What do we do? Maybe it gives us a little bit of a boost to that supply chain issue, maybe not. But General Electric, Boing Boing was pointing out today, General Electric has moved some plants back into the U.S. because of the price of energy. Combined with the rising wages in China and the falling wages in the United States, it actually started to make more financial sense in the U.S. I'm not saying that that's going to be true for Apple necessarily, but it's not as unheard of as it would have been a few years ago. Let's take a quick break and thank our sponsor, Squarespace, the fast and easy way to create a high-quality website and blog. We tell you about Squarespace all the time because we love them. I use them myself for lots of things. I use it for Sword and Laser. I use it for my book site because it's easy. I know I'm going to get a good-looking blog, and I want to focus on the message. I just want to put up some links, talk about the thing that I'm making, let people know about it, and I want it to look good, and I want it to work easily. And that's what Squarespace 6 does. Best mobile experience, too. I didn't even think about this when I first started using websites. When I first started making websites, you have so many different screens these days. People are on phones, people are on laptops, people are on big desktop screens. So what Squarespace does is they automatically resize your images into multiple sizes, 7 sizes, for all different sites, and they have mobile responsive templates. So the template knows, like, okay, it looks like you're on that kind of screen. We're going to format things so it makes sense and it looks good, and you don't have to mess with it. You don't have to think about all that stuff. Beautiful templates, 100% drag and drop functionality, and exceptionally well designed. Squarespace has an award-winning design team. Wouldn't you like to say, I have an award-winning design team working on my website? Well, you can. Go try out Squarespace. You don't even have to take our word for it. You don't have to have a special code. You don't have to give them a credit card or a drip it or anything. You just go, you sign up, squarespace.com, create a website. You can even import your old website. If you like it, keep it, and use this offer code when you pay for the service, TNT12. You get 10% off your first purchase on new accounts. That includes monthly and annual plans. That's squarespace.com. Use that offer code TNT12. Everything you need to create an exceptional website. And we thank Squarespace for their continuing support of Tech News Today. Go try them out. The passing of The Daily. The Daily will be shutting down December 15th after 21 months. It was the iPad-only publication, tablet-only publication, launched in February 2011. As Sarah mentioned, it was losing $30 million a year and only got about 100,000 subs. It needed about 500,000 subs to break even. They were charging 99 cents a week or $40 a year for a subscription, so not that expensive. Will, is this just a failed business model to say we're going to be tablet only, or is there a way to make a digital newspaper successful?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, I should probably disclose that I am technically a News Corp employee.
Oh yes, I'd actually forgotten about that.
But I don't really have much skin in the game in terms of The Daily. I think it's interesting. I know they tried really hard to try and make it work and to build a real, I guess what you would call a proper digital newsroom, right? It was you were staffing it as if it was a print magazine almost, but to the level that it is. But I think what the successful digital only publications have shown, whether you look at people like Gawker or people like the Huffington Post, is that taking the kind of similar newspaper model and moving it to the web doesn't work. You've got to have a fundamentally different approach and fundamentally different cost base to make online only work. And I think they didn't quite get it right.
I'm not sure that they had the right content either, Sarah.
Yeah, the Daily was it wanted to be the everything newspaper. I mean, there was a tech section, there was a sports section, there was an entertainment section, and I think more and more we go to online alternatives to newspapers that are a lot more specialized. I mean, yeah, I might access the New York Times online, as much as I would have ever read the paper, but I've kind of got my tech blogs for my tech stuff, and I think there are so many blogs and publications that specialize in a certain kind of content that the Daily sort of became it's just another newspaper, but it's on the iPad only. And, we're going to talk a little bit more later in the show about how tablet numbers are continue to rise, people that are accessing content via tablets. But tablets are still, and I'm a tablet user, I think a pretty high volume of my activity online is now coming from tablets, but it's still not the only way that I'm accessing stuff. It is one of the 3 ways that I access the web on a regular basis. And if I'm constantly coming up against the question, oh, wait, am I using the right device for my favorite newspaper, if it's the Daily, and that's just not a question that I should ever have to be asking myself. If you get it on the devices that you're using, great. If you can only use it on one device, maybe if I never had a computer to begin with and I just had a tablet, then I'd never think about this. If you like the content that the Daily has, great. But it was a little bit before its time, too limiting.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point, is that it's sort of, if News Corp deserves credit, it's because it was sort of before its time, and they set up an iPad-only newspaper with a massive newsroom in the middle of New York at a time when the iPad just came out. They sort of saw this thing and went, wow, we have to develop something for it because this is going to be the future of news. So kudos to those guys for sort of recognizing it, but I guess they didn't quite work out where tablets came in the media mix, right?
Yeah.
And I think you're quite right that when we look to the web and when we look to digital content, we're increasingly getting more and more and more niche, right? You've probably got one place that you go for your general news, and everything else that you're interested in, you've got really specialist niche publications. And so I think trying to do something that's quite broad is really, really tough.
I feel like they made one big mistake and had one gamble that didn't pay off. And that gamble that didn't pay off was the content. And the fact that they never got that big story that everybody said, well, you have to read the Daily to see this. And like you say, I think it's a fair criticism to say maybe they went too broad. The mistake was trying to restrict it to the iPad. It's really hard to get pickup and sharing when you make it complicated to get to the content. And I think that's a lesson to be learned out of that as well. Let's talk about Microsoft's poor PC sales. IT Pro Portal reports Microsoft has cut orders for the Surface RT from 4 million to 2 million. DigiTimes is starting to make noises that maybe we'll see a lower price for the Surface Pro. They're reporting that other RT-based tablets from Samsung and Acer and Dell have experienced weak demand. And Zach Whitaker on Between the Lines at ZDNet argues that poor PC sales could unravel the company. Now, this all seems like a lot of doom and gloom when Microsoft had some pretty positive numbers. And of course, Microsoft has said, like, this is inconsistent with everything Steve Ballmer has said. We think things are fine. And a lot of people have pointed out, yeah, Windows 8 isn't going to be taken up as fast as Windows 7 because it's coming off of Windows 7, which was a decent operating system, whereas Windows 7 was coming off of Vista, which a lot of people maligned and a lot of people didn't adopt. So Will, do you think this is all just hater hype, or how do we separate the real concerns from the people who just don't like Microsoft?
Haters gonna hate, Tom. Haters gonna hate. I think it's really tough to unravel, but I think either way, it's way too early to call it. I think, do I see a lot of demand right now for Windows RT-based tablets? No, but then I think most people wouldn't even know what a Windows RT-based tablet is right now, right? This whole distinction between Windows RT and Windows 8 seems kind of really weird. And I think if you look at the initial adoption numbers of Windows 8 in terms of the desktop, I think they've been a bit slower than Windows 7. But as you say, Windows 7 came off the back of Vista, which was awful. Windows 8 is coming off the back of Windows 7, which is perfectly fine. So I think it's way too early to say it's probably too early to say that Windows RT tablets are not selling well, and it's definitely too early to say that bad PC sales are going to have a knock-on effect on the rest of Microsoft. If only because, when we look at the reports coming out, I was listening to Windows Weekly last week, and we're hearing all about Windows Blue, right? This kind of feature pack, service pack type update that's going to drop next year, maybe, and will probably start to herald this move to subscription-based Windows pricing. I think it's... I don't think Windows 8 needs to be an enormous success in the terms that we currently think of it for it to still be an enormous success. I think just getting off the legacy sort of platforms is going to be enough. It would define success for Microsoft at this point. And I think it's really the next version of Windows that is going to be the absolutely the sort of pivotal one in terms of betting the company on whether or not it'll work.
The concept here is that tablets are not selling as well, or tablets are selling better than PCs, and if Microsoft isn't increasing its tablet sales, that it's in danger. Sarah, what do you make of that?
Well, I mean, I think probably Microsoft is revising numbers. 4 million to 2 million. This is coming from this is coming from IT Pro Portal, which is coming from Digitimes. Okay, well, make of that what you will. But can we talk about this quote for a second from the Microsoft spokesperson? It's worded really strangely. The Microsoft spokesperson said, "This report that we hear is inconsistent with comments that Steve Ballmer made regarding the fact that Microsoft was ramping up production." So they're not saying this is inconsistent with the reality. They're saying it's inconsistent with something that our CEO said. Was he being honest? Was he it's like, it's not really a denial. It's a semantics
It's really
thing.
weirdly phrased, isn't it?
Yeah. Usually they just say, we don't comment on rumors and speculation. So, yeah, it's a little odd. I think they're...
And that is kind of what they said, but they also were careful not to say, this report is inaccurate.
Yeah.
They said, this report is not what he said.
We're not going to say anything, but he said something different.
That's what she said.
So there
Right.
Developers. Well, that leads very nicely into talking about this adoption of social media. Sarah, what's going on with this Nielsen report?
Oh, well, people are using social media, Tom, more than ever.
What?
And it turns out that we're all starting to access social media on things like smartphones and tablets more than ever as well. This is a report published by Nielsen and NM Insight that finds consumers spend about 20% of total online time. So if I'm online, of that 100%, 20% is using social networks via PCs. 30% of that total online time is using social networks via mobile. Social media usage, but this is U.S. numbers, by the way. Social media usage in the U.S. grew 37% overall, from about 121 billion minutes during the month of July 2012, which is up from 88 billion minutes at the same time in the previous year. So as far as mobile numbers, saw big growth. That's really not a surprise. 46% of social media users are now accessing via smartphones. 16% of them say that, yeah, we're accessing social media via our tablets. Tablet numbers, clearly the iPad would be the largest number in those tablet numbers if you break them down, but 16% using tablets overall. The U.S. mobile web audience grew as a whole 82% from last July. That's a big jump. A mobile app audience grew 85%, but the PC audience fell just 4%. But still, that's a falling number. So that's really interesting. It's not just, hey, more people are now accessing via mobile, via smartphones and via apps, but it's instead of on the PC, at least for some folks. And then, of course, of the social networks, not a huge surprise, Facebook is the most popular social network in the U.S. If you put together the PC numbers, which is 152 million, the mobile app numbers, so that's via Facebook's app, 78%, and then people just visiting Facebook via mobile websites, that's another 74.3 million users. That's Facebook. But guess who's in second place? It might not be who you'd think of off the top of your head. It wasn't mine anyway. It's Blogger by Google. Google's Blogger is in second place with 58.5 million. And then Twitter's in third. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess Blogger is just, it's been around so long. I'm surprised it's still number 2. Although the biggest growth by a landslide is Pinterest. Holy moly. Pinterest had the biggest year-over-year increase. It is up 1,000% since this time last year.
And that's not a metaphor. That's not just like an empty phrase. It really is up over 1,000%.
Yeah, 1,047% to be precise. That's unique audience spending time on social networks across PCs, mobile web, mobile applications. Pinterest is on a roll. Of course, about 70% of Pinterest users female, but that's not 90. I mean, it's not half and half, but it is really seeing growth. Again, that's from July to July. But what do you make of this? Are any of these numbers surprising, or are we just going to continue to see mobile and tablet numbers rising, especially because when you think of kids in school, anybody under 18, maybe you're given a phone, a hand-me-down phone for the first time, and that's your computer. Are you ever going to go to a PC at some point, or is that just over?
Yeah, I think this doesn't surprise me in the slightest. When I think about even my own personal use of things, like I use my PC, I use my laptop way less for social networking now than I do my iPhone. Like my iPhone has sort of become the center of all my Twitter and Facebook activity because it's the thing that's connected in most immediately to my photos and to my music. And that's how I use it. Am I surprised that Facebook is the most popular? No, because that's what I use the most. I think what I would find really interesting is what they haven't included in this, which I think is maybe a bit of a swizz, is YouTube. Because for my money, we should start to be thinking about YouTube as a social network because there are so many social features, whether it's comments and replies and likes and shares and posting and those kind of things. I think if you put YouTube in that graph, it would easily be at number 2 in terms of the place that people have social activity. I think in terms of the mobile numbers, again, doesn't surprise me because we've seen, channel flip. We have a lot of YouTube channels that we run, and we've seen mobile viewing go from maybe like 15% at the beginning of last year to maybe 45% at the moment. And it's going to be, 60 to 70% by the end of next year. Mobile is just skyrocketing. And the idea that people want to connect to each other on their phones kind of seems like a no-brainer, right?
Right. All right, let's finish up with the randomizer.
Randomizer.
Hey, good job, Britain. New hypersonic international flights may be on the horizon. Reaction Engines Limited says its hypersonic engine could send us over Mach 5, allowing us, according to this Wired article, to have bagels for breakfast in New York and sushi for lunch in Tokyo with just a couple hours flight in between.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, especially after you just flew over to Paris, right?
Yeah, the way that I did it is not the fun way to do it, but that's the only way that I know. Yeah, wouldn't that be great? Supersonic, everybody. Let's do this.
Missed the Concorde. So what can we do to help this out, Will?
Oh, man, I want this so bad. I'm so sad that I sort of, started flying too late to ever catch a Concorde. I think that would be just an amazing thing to have. I think if you look at, these guys who say as the Wired article says, that they have made, quote, the biggest breakthrough in aerospace propulsion since the invention of the jet engine. I mean, gosh, I really hope that's true. If there's one thing that is I think everybody can agree that travel and long-haul aero travel is just the pits. Like, it's awful. Sarah, you've just done it. I'm about to do it next month. And I'm really not looking forward to it. And it just seems like in a world where we can put robots on Mars and a man can jump from a balloon at the edge of space, the idea that it takes us 7 hours to get from London to New York seems kind of ridiculous. So I really hope these guys have sussed it.
Yeah, I could not agree more with both of you. I could try, but I don't think I could. All right, let's take a break and thank our other sponsor for today's show, Lantronix. We've had them on before as a sponsor of the show, and I have a Lantronix box hooked up at my house. And let me say, I was skeptical that this thing was going to work, but it works great. It allows you to print directly from the iOS native menu without having to buy any apps, without having to load any software. It supports more than 4,000 top brand network printers. Easy to use, automatic discovery. You plug it in, you plug it into your network, it finds your printers. You're on your way. I have an old Canon printer that's got Wi-Fi, and I was like, I know how this networking stuff goes. This isn't going to work. Worked right out of the box. Just open it up, plug it in, and print. And advanced configuration is available via web interface, but if you don't need to do anything special, it just works. 1X print server supports multiple printers and virtually unlimited iOS devices because it works with AirPrint. The Home Edition is $99, supports up to 8 USB and 2 network printers. The Office Edition is $199 and supports up to 8 USB and unlimited network printers and allows your USB printers to be shared with all users over a network. Here's what you're going to do to try it out. Go to xprintserver.com/twit for more information and to buy. And we've got a special offer for the month of December. Use the code HOLIDAY2012 and receive 20% off on your order. Remember, visit xprintserver.com/twit and at checkout, enter the code HOLIDAY2012. And that's a happy holidays from Lantronix to you. We thank them for their support of Tech News Today. Go give them a shot. Try them out. It's if this is the kind of thing you need to do, it really, really works. What's on the calendar there, Sarah?
Geez, you must have ESP, Tom, because I got it right in front of me. Happy 20th birthday to SMS. Yeah. On December 3rd, 1992, an engineer sent the message, Merry Christmas, from a PC to a mobile device using Vodafone's UK network. And SMS is still kicking, though on the decline. An iTunes event is taking place in Moscow, December 4th. That's tomorrow. So some say Russia's probably getting iTunes.
I'm sorry. I was texting you. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I saw that you were Oh, I see what you did there. Well, see, you know what's weird is that popped up on iMessage on my Mac. So, I didn't even get your little
texting really is dead. Yeah.
Well, I saw the note that said "Happy Birthday SMS," and I'm like, didn't I just say that? I don't think I screwed that one up. All right. So anyway, Russia's getting iTunes. Maybe we'll find out soon enough. Tomorrow, The Dark Knight Rises is getting its release on Blu-ray at Le Web. That's where I am right now. Well, I'm not at Le Web, but I'm in Paris for Le Web this week. Runs tomorrow the 4th through Thursday the 6th here in Paris. Finally, NBC's Brian Williams is going to sit down with Apple CEO Tim Cook. That interview is airing December 6th.
All right, let's see what's incoming.
Incoming message.
We got some emails. Let's pull something out of the email bag, Sarah. What's our first one?
All right, first email from Ashley, who loves the show. Says, I'm in Australia, so I always manage to miss the live stream, but I download the audio version first thing in the morning. And on episode 638, Ken Denmead mentioned that and Ashley says, I'm paraphrasing here, a smartwatch would have to be pretty wow for him to take notice of it. Just wondering if you guys had seen or heard of the iWatch. It's beautiful. It's been around since 2011, but like Vuzix, which is mentioned in another email that Ashley sent us, doesn't seem to get much airtime. Check it out, says Ashley. I'd love to see what you guys think. I've never heard of this either, but it certainly looks nice.
Just a quick note. We actually did cover the iWatch on Before You Buy, episode 31, I believe.
I'm not sure. Do you remember who reviewed it?
I'm not finding that right off the top, but it is episode 31. Let's see here.
It is very pretty.
And I'm not finding out who reviewed it.
And it's got Twitter and Facebook and weather and very appy. Yeah, it was nice. Apparently Leo may have done it.
It's lovely. Yeah. Well, I guess I better watch Before You Buy a little bit more.
It is Leo.
For the heads up.
Have you heard of
this?
Nobody
cares what that guy thinks, right?
Oh, yeah. He just writes the checks. Oh, wait. I care deeply. Have you seen this watch before, Will?
I have never seen it. Honestly, though, I don't get the whole smartwatch thing. I know people are mad for smartwatches. They're like, the iPod Nano on a watch, and it's like I can have, the weather. It's like I can have the weather and the time and some SMS on my watch. It's like, well, if I want the time, I can look at my actual watch. If I want the weather, I can look out the window. And if I want my SMS, I will just type on my phone. I just don't get the whole smartwatch thing. So I really It's not for me.
I'm glad you said that because I understand why people get excited about it, but it's definitely, I'm with you. It's
just the kind of James Bond thing, right? It makes you think like it's going to be this amazing gadget watch that can suddenly do all these things, but actually you realize it's basically just going to tell you the time and your email and the weather forecast, and you go, actually, that's not very James Bond at all.
Yeah, if it had nerve gas in it or something. Like
or like a little, you know, like an exploding bomb where you click the button to change the time and like the whole thing blew up or something, like in GoldenEye with that pen.
Yeah.
You know, that would be awesome, but as it is, nah.
All right, that's it for this episode of Tech News Today. Wil Harris, my friend, always a pleasure. Thanks for joining us. Tell folks about Channel Flip if they don't already know about it.
Oh, yes. Right. I'm going to take this opportunity to do a mega plug because we just released 2 amazing new channels on YouTube. They're 2 of the big YouTube-funded channels that you guys are always talking about on Frame Rate. And they're excellent. They're just for people, the sort of people that are listening and watching Tech News Today. One is called youtube.com/hoo-ha, which is HUHA, which is wonderful animation. It's sort of Adult Swim versus Monty Python type thing.
Oh, that's awesome.
And the other one is youtube.com/the multiverse, which is scripted kind of geek comedy. So you guys will absolutely love it. So go to youtube.com/the multiverse, youtube.com/hoo-ha, and subscribe for lots of amazing YouTube-based tomfoolery.
Excellent. And after you've done watching that, then you can go to technewstoday.reddit.com, submit some stories, see what other folks in the audience are wanting us to talk about. And then you can go to twit.tv/TNT and listen to all 640 episodes of Tech News Today, because that's where you find us. You can also email us, tnt@twit.tv, and give us a call, 260-TNT-SHOW. Ayaz Akhtar still off tomorrow, but Sarah Lane will be here, and we will see you then.